3 came out in the year 2006 and was directed by J.J. Abrams. This movie would take elements of both the first and second film, like the thriller espionage portion of the first movie, and then the ramped up action of the second movie, blend them together to give fans the ultimate Mission Impossible experience at the time. And I remember when this movie came out, I was 16 years old. I was so hyped to watch this movie. Didn't get to see it in theaters, but the second it came out on DVD, I can remember walking into the Walmart, seeing the display stand for Mission Impossible 3, grabbing that DVD, paying for it with my summer job money, got home, put that DVD in the DVD player, watched it for the first time, and absolutely loved the adventure that Ethan Hunt and the rest of the IMF team took us on. And so today I'm continuing on with my Mission Impossible review series, where I'm watching and reviewing each and every one of the Mission Impossible films leading up to the 8th entry in the franchise, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And of course, when the 8th film comes out, I'll watch and review that movie as well, and then I will put a full ranked list of all the Mission Impossible films ranked from worst to best in my own personal opinion, so be on the lookout for that as well, especially if you liked ranked list videos. Alright guys, let's get into the review for Mission Impossible number 3.
Here we go.
That is one big pile of shit.
No, I shot him. Bullets in the fall killed him.
And so Mission Impossible 3 once again brings back Tom Cruise as the lead character of Ethan Hunt, but you find out right off the bat that Ethan Hunt has gotten out of the field missions and is now more of a trainer for the IMF, training the next group of people going into the field. And the reason for this change of pace in Ethan's life is because he recently fell in love with a girl named Julia, and Julia is played by Michelle Monaghan. He wants to get married to her, and so he wants to leave the field mission work behind him so that he can live a life with her and he can take care of her. But as fate would have it, even though Ethan wants to live a calmer life, the IMF comes to him with a job and says, hey, you're the person for this mission, and it's kind of personal to you because there's a girl named Agent Ferris who Ethan had given the green light to go do field work, and she has been captured by some people. Usually the IMF would have abandoned her and just said, hey, we're going to cut all ties with her. It's the job. It is what it is. But she may have some really important information and they need her back. And while this may start as a rescue mission with Ethan trying to save a former student, well, it quickly turns into a world-saving mission where Ethan is after an item known only as the Rabbit's Foot, and it puts him against one of this series' best villains in the entire franchise in Owen Davian, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. And this search for the Rabbit's Foot would lead Ethan on a new impossible mission around the world, including the Vatican itself, with a new IMF team. He would bring back characters like Ving Rhames as Luther, but we got introduced to Maggie Q as Zen, and we got introduced to one of my favorite characters in this franchise, which would be Simon Pegg as Benji. Benji would then be in several movies going forward, and we'll talk about him more later on in this review. But guys, that is my best synopsis for Mission Impossible 3. If that sounds like a fun time, well, this movie is currently streaming on Paramount Plus, or you can go find it on physical media. That's how I'd recommend that you check it out. Now I'm going to get to my positives and my negatives here in a second, but before I do that, if this is the first time you found my channel, well, I would love for you guys to hit that subscribe button. Check out all the different content on my channel, whether you like movie reviews, Blu-ray talk, ranked list videos. I just got done doing the full review series for Final Destination, where I watched and reviewed all of those movies and then put a ranked list up for that series. So if you're a big fan of that series, I'd love for you to check that out as well. The point I'm trying to make is that there's a lot of content on my channel, and I'd love for you guys to check it out. All right, let's get into my positives and my negatives for Mission Impossible 3. My first positive for this movie is going to be the opening scene. All of the Mission Impossibles open up with something big happening. In the first movie, you see the first reveal of that mask getting ripped off with Tom Cruise being underneath it, and then you're like, okay, so this is going to be about spies, espionage, sort of a whodunit movie. The second film, you get the switch where it's the villain wearing Ethan Hunt's face. He rips that off, and then you're like, okay, so you're going to switch things up in this movie. But in the third film, what I really love about this opening is that it shows Ethan in a very compromised position. He's tied to a chair, he can't get out of it. His wife is across the room from him. She's also tied to a chair, and you've got this villain played by Philip Seymour Hoffman fan who's telling him, you need to tell me where the rabbit's foot is. And Ethan's like, I don't know what it is. I can't help you. And he's like, I'm going to count to 10. And when he starts that countdown, it is such an edge of your seat moment. And to open your movie with that edge of a seat moment where you have to watch as Ethan pleads for his wife's life, because Owen Davian has a gun to his wife's head saying he'll pull the trigger, shoots her in the knee at one point during the countdown to prove that he's not messing around. And again, it just puts you, the audience, on the edge. It's an incredible opening scene. And of course, it ultimately shows us that Ethan will do anything to save the world, including sacrificing those that he loves. And it's a really dark moment in the franchise because Ethan is always known as this guy who's going to try and save his crew. But when Ethan is faced in these opening moments with turning over the rabbit's foot to Owen Davian or saving his wife's life, he ultimately tells him, no, I'm not going to help you, as the countdown gets to 1, and then boom, the movie begins. And it's such a great opening. It also gives you, the fans, the anticipation of sitting there waiting for that scene to catch up with the rest of the movie, because then it just goes to Ethan at a house party with his fiance. They're not married yet. You get to see them get married a little later on in the movie, and you're like, okay, when is this scene going to happen? And when it happens, oh, it's great. So I just love how that opening scene really sets the tone for this movie. My next positive is going to be the theme song for the Mission Impossible music. Again, I think they did a lot of blending of the first two films. That's what this theme song feels like. They seem to blend a mixture of the orchestra rendition of the Mission Impossible theme from part 1, the rock and roll theme of part 2, sort of mix them together. And I've seen a lot of people give negatives to this movie because of this theme song, but it's always been one that I really enjoyed. I have no problem with it, and I put it in my positives. My next positive is actually going to be one of the coolest moments in the entire franchise, in my opinion. And no, it's not even one of the crazy stunts that he does in this movie. It's actually a moment where Ethan is pinned down at the beginning of the film. He's in this rescue mission with his student. They're pinned down, machine guns shooting at them. They're shooting back. Well, it comes down to his student is out of bullets. He's got 1 bullet left in his machine gun. She asks, how much you got left? And he goes, I have enough. He jumps up, takes the shot, kills the last guy, and then goes, now I'm out. And it's just a cool moment. If you're a fan of the franchise, if you're a fan of Ethan Hunt, to me, that's one of my favorite parts of the series. My next positive of this movie has to do with the masks. You know, in the first movie, we got to see the good guys with the masks, so they tore them off to trick the bad guys. In the second film, we saw the bad guys have that same technology, and so they would trick the audience, they would trick each other, where the good guys would be wearing the bad guys' faces, the bad guys would be wearing the good guys' faces. I really liked that, but in this film, you actually get to see the masks get made, and you also get to see that voice changer moment where he forces Philip Seymour Hoffman's character to read this card so that they could get what they needed to make Ethan's voice change. And I thought that was really cool. So just kind of showing some of the behind the scenes, especially with the mask, getting to see it get created, I really liked that. Another positive is something we talked about a little bit earlier during the synopsis, and that is the performance out of Philip Seymour Hoffman as the character of Owen Davian. Not only does he give one of the best performances in the entire franchise, but he also is one of the best villains, in my opinion, for the whole franchise. Every scene he's in, he steals. He is just this commanding presence. Anytime he's on the screen, you're scared of this guy as a viewer. You don't want to cross paths with this guy. At one point, Ethan has him where he wants him, locked up in the back of a van, only for him to escape, and Ethan realizing this guy is going to come for everybody that Ethan loves. And it's a really terrifying moment for Ethan, and you, the viewer, feel that because of how evil this character truly is. And I loved how he portrayed the character of Owen Davian. And my final positive is that while this movie is very standalone, you can enjoy the film as a standalone movie if you don't want to get involved in like a whole series of films. I do think that this is truly the kickoff and the start of what would become the big Mission Impossible storyline, because they bring in certain characters that you're going to continue seeing going forward. You know, until this point, both the first and second movie felt like standalone movies. Ethan would put together a new team, and yes, he would bring back Luther, but other than Luther, it would be a completely new team, a completely new mission, one and done within that movie. But in this film, where Ethan is chasing down this rabbit's foot, bringing in this new team, it truly feels like the start of something new, the start of a team he would continuously bring back going forward. And even though when I first watched this movie, I didn't know that, because obviously the rest of the films hadn't come out, you could feel that in this movie. When you first watched it, you're like, they're putting together this team for a reason. And I loved that feeling. Every time I watch this movie, I feel like I'm kicking off the franchise. Yes, part 1 is there, part 2 is there, but I really feel that part 3 kicks off that connective tissue for the rest of the franchise. Well, that'll lead me over to my negatives. My first negative is actually one of the few spoilers for this movie. So if you haven't seen the movie, I am giving you a fair warning. I'm going to get into some of the details from one of the characters in this film, but the movie's been out since 2006. I assume most of you watching this have already seen the movie, so let's move forward. So there's a character in this movie that's a good friend of Ethan throughout the film named John Musgrave. He's the one that keeps getting Ethan involved with the IMF. Like, Ethan was very happy with doing the field training. His bosses were happy with it. Everybody was good with Ethan not being in the field, but this friend of his, John Musgrave, keeps giving him information, getting him to go after the rabbit's foot, trying to be on his side, trying to get Ethan out into the field, and you can see they've got a nice back and forth throughout the film. And the thing that makes this a negative is that they have to turn that character into a bad guy. They have to flip it, and now it turns out that he is an extra villain in this movie, and that bothered me because you didn't need that. You had a great villain performance out of Philip Seymour Hoffman. You could have explained away some of the things that John Musgrave's character sort of helps fill in the gaps for, but you didn't need him to turn bad. I feel like the only reason his character was written as being a double agent, being a bad guy, was because that's what the series had done before. You always had somebody that had turned bad on the IMF. You had that in part 1 with John Voight's character. You had that in part 2 where the main villain of the movie was basically a copy of Ethan Hunt, and so they were going at each other from the same field training, and they knew each other's moves. And then you get into this third movie and they're like, well, we got to have somebody that betrays Ethan, so let's make it this guy, the guy that was his friend for the whole movie. And that's something that's always bothered me. I didn't think that was necessary for this movie. I felt like it was just sort of shoehorned in because that's what we have always done in the other Mission Impossible movies. My next negative is that as much as I liked the character of Owen Davian and I loved the performance out of Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I know he passed away after this movie and so he couldn't have been in another Mission Impossible film anyway, I did not like the way that they disposed of his character. He was this character with so much gravitas. He was this character with so much evil in him. You wanted to see him continue on with this series, and instead they opted to push him through a door and have Ethan hold him in front of a car as a car kills him. It was such an unceremonious way to get rid of his character. It felt like they just sort of wrote themselves into a corner and they're like, oh yeah, we haven't killed this guy yet. Well, we got to kill the bad guy. Throw him in front of a car. Like, that's what it felt like. It didn't feel like they were taking it as serious as they should have. This should have been a character with a much harsher death. This should have been a character with a more impactful death. But just having Ethan kick him through a door and then hold him in front of a car only for that car to kill only him, to me, it was a lazy way of getting rid of his character. And that leads me to my final negative of this movie, which is something that people go back and forth in online, and that is that they never reveal what the rabbit's foot is. At one point, Benji has this really long monologue about what the rabbit's foot could be, but they never explain to you what it is. It's essentially just the item to get Ethan into the field. It's the thing to propel this movie, and it doesn't matter what it truly is, because at the end of the day, that's not what matters. What matters is that Ethan is in the field and that he's going up against this Owen Davian character, and you're going to have a lot of fun with that. And you do have fun with it. This is an entry into the franchise that I really love, but I've never really appreciated that they never tell you what that rabbit's foot is. Even at the end of the movie, Lawrence Fishburne's character says to Ethan, if you want to know what the rabbit's foot is, you'll come back. And Ethan's like, I'll see you later. And he leaves, and you're just like, all right, but are we going to know what it was? And to this day, even though we've gotten so many sequels since then, there's never been mention of the rabbit's foot, and they've never told us what the rabbit's foot is. Maybe that'll be a big surprise in the final reckoning. Hey, as a fan of the series, if they do that, I'll take this negative away, I promise. But till then, it did irritate me that all the rabbit's foot truly is a way to get Ethan into the field and get you invested in the story, and they never tell you what it is. But overall, guys, I had a really fun time with Mission Impossible 3. Yet again, this is one of my favorite entries into the franchise, and it's one that I could recommend to pretty much anybody, because if you're just in it for a one-off mission of Ethan and his team, I think you'll really enjoy this movie. If you're in it for the beginning of what is the connective tissue of the rest of the series, then I think you can really enjoy this as well. If you're a big fan of part 1 or a big fan of part 2, I think you can enjoy part 3 because it blends those worlds together. To me, this is one of the strongest entries in the entire franchise. But guys, those are just my opinions, because that's my review for Mission Impossible 3. Have you guys had a chance to see this movie? If you have, let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know where we agree or disagree. Let me know your favorite part about this movie. Maybe you're a big fan of the stunts in this movie, whether it's Tom Cruise getting thrown into a car and actually breaking a couple of ribs, or him jumping from building to building. He's doing crazy stuff. So I'd love to know all your thoughts about Mission Impossible 3 in that comment section as well. And finally, finally, guys, if you like this review, don't forget to hit that like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Alright guys, we got to the end of my Mission Impossible 3 review. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I had a great time making it, had a great time watching this movie again. Again, it's just one of my favorite entries into this whole franchise. In the next couple of days, I will be dropping the next several Mission Impossible reviews, so make sure you keep an eye on my channel for all of those. But until then, if you want to check out any of the other content on my channel, well, I've got all of my Mission Impossible reviews right there, and I've got all of my 2025 movie reviews right there.